call our meeting to order for February the 1st. Our invocation today is from Commissioner Freeman Hardison.
Please bow our heads. God, please invest us with the wisdom and the courage to do the things that we need to do for the citizens of Wayne County. Let us put our egos aside, and God, in Jesus' name I pray, please pray for the health of our citizens. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, and Pledge of Allegiance, Commissioner Gurley.
Place the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I got it. Okay, I need a motion for approval of the minutes of January the 18th.
So move.
Okay, we have a motion. Any discussion on the motion? Being none, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Okay, adjustments to the agenda.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. No adjustments at this time.
Okay, I need a motion for approval of the agenda.
So move.
All right, we have a motion. Any discussion on the motion? Being none, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Okay, special presentations. Mr. Honeycutt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. First is motion to approve 2022 Black History Month Proclamation, and I believe Commissioner Williams will be reading that.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Black History Month Proclamation. Whereas much of Wayne County's honor, strength, and statue can be attributed to the diversity of cultures and traditions that are celebrated by the residents of this great county. And whereas African Americans have played significant roles in the history of North Carolina's economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development while working tirelessly to maintain and promote their culture and history. And whereas, as a result of their determination, hard work, intelligence, and perseverance, African Americans have made valuable and lasting contributions to Wayne County and our state, achieving exceptional success in all aspects of society, including business, education, politics, science, and the arts. And whereas in 1976, Black History Month was formally adopted to honor and affirm the importance of Black history. Throughout our American experience, which goes back hundreds of years and includes some of the greatest, most advanced, and innovative societies in our history, from which we can all draw inspiration. And whereas Black History Month is a time of all Americans to remember the stories and teachings of those who helped build our nation, took a stance against prejudice to build lives of dignity and opportunity, advanced the cause of civil rights, and strengthened families and communities. And whereas during Black History Month, all Americans are encouraged to reflect on past successes and challenges of African Americans and look to the future to continue to improve society so we live up to the ideas of freedom, equality, and justice. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Wayne County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim February 2022 to be Black History Month in Wayne County, and encourage all citizens to join in honoring the many contributions made by African Americans throughout the area and to participate in the many educational events honoring the contributions of Black Americans. This day, first day of February 2022. Thank you.
Thank you. And are you making the motion for approval?
So moved.
So moved. Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Being none, all those in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. Okay, that's unanimous. All right.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next is presentation on the 2022 Senior Games by Skylar Kelly, and she's the local Senior Games Coordinator.
I'm sorry. You heard that, she did.
I am so sorry.
We have to put up with this all the time.
There we go.
Please don't.
It's okay.
Oh,
It's okay.
sorry.
How you guys doing this morning?
Great.
Great. So I just want to give you guys a few facts, create a little awareness of senior games coming up. So I'm sure this thing's been going on for a few years now, or several years. It started back in the early 90s, and we're trying to keep this thing rolling. Last year, due to COVID, playing a severe part in our community and everything, we were able to still have the games, but it kind of slowed us down as we got towards the final things of, people moving forward and qualifying for the game. So this year, we hope to do something different and bring everybody back out. So I have a few packets here. I don't know if I can hand them to you guys or anything like that, so you guys can see what I'm talking about here and everything. But senior games consists of a number of games. You got cornhole, basketball, civil arts, knitting, pastels, sculpting, all kinds of things you can think of, line dancing. So there's no limit. Anybody is truly welcome. And that's what I like about it. Even though I'm a young man, I'm not yet a senior. But this encourages me to look forward to 50.
Oh, is it 50?
All right.
Is it 50?
Yes, sir. So 50 and above, yes, sir.
Oh, really?
And then you also have to be a local resident in Wayne County to participate in the games. And the good thing about this is, folks, registration starts today. So I don't know if you guys got planned, during lunch, but feel free to sign up. All right? You guys can come by and sign up at the Herman Park Center. We'll be also signing up at the Peggy Seeger Center. We're getting those times and dates together for people to be able to come out and do that as well. And then there's a full month of registration. Like I said, it starts today. Yes, sir.
Do you have it online?
Yes, sir. It will be online as
Okay, I just
well.
want to make sure you mention that so people will know.
Oh, yes, sir. And then online, it'll be actually on our Facebook page at Wayne County NC Senior Games. So we just kind of got that together. So you guys be looking forward to that. We have different little skits and different little quotes going out through the month as we lead up to April, as that is the month that'll take place. So we have different things up there rotating as we speak now, just promoting awareness, okay? And then there'll be different venues that'll take place at. The Bryan Multi-Sport Complex, I'm sure you guys are aware of that. Herman Park Center, the Peggy Seeger Center, and different places throughout the city just for we all to be a part of. Outside of that, guys, I want to say I've covered most of my material. It was a short presentation, just kind of wanting to speak and introduce myself as I am the new local coordinator. And you guys will be seeing more of me, and I hope to see more of you. So if you don't have any questions.
Any questions?
I'd just like to say, I haven't participated in senior games as a contestant, but I participated as a volunteer. And it's competitive.
Oh, no doubt.
I know. I ain't quite there. I'm around the corner, though. I'm around the corner. But when I say competitive, it's serious. I love it. I mean, it's just so much energy, full of life, just to see the sportsmanship.
Yes.
It's not just, well, they're competing, but they're just helping one another. It's a lot of love out there. You can just feel it, you know what I mean? So even if you don't compete, try to come out and volunteer, because you always need volunteers.
Definitely, 100%. As Mr. Foster said, it is very competitive. This is my first time being the coordinator, but I've also helped out with it for several years. And you think, just a little thing, we're just gonna kick the ball, keep it rolling. I let you know, hold up, wait a minute. I might be 50, but I can kick this thing. You want me to now, you know what I mean? So it's really a great thing to see people just come together, bring the community together, and we just have a good time with it, man. And that's really what it's all about.
Well, if they're as enthusiastic as you are, it'll be a fun time. So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
that's
Definitely.
good.
And I thought we had a busy schedule. I mean, you've topped the cake here.
I was trying not to sweat, but hey.
Well, congratulations on your appointment in your new position, and keep the enthusiasm up. You've got a lot of excitement, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thank you, guys.
Okay, drum roll, the presentation of the annual audit.
Make sure you have as much enthusiasm as Skylar does.
I like auditing.
You like audit.
I sure do.
That's your life, isn't it?
It is.
My name is Paul Lund, down Lane. We are here to present the June 30, 21 audit report. I'm going to put on the screen. Y'all got a printout.
You got a PowerPoint? Oh, she. Do you guys control the PowerPoint or do I?
You can't, if you'll pull the top drawer out.
Yep. I can hit next. Okay.
Okay, good.
Okay, Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. Each year, Wayne County Finance Office submits the financial statement to the Government Finance Office Association, and they review it, and they check it for accuracy and reporting standards, and if they meet certain criteria, then they're awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. And of course, this year they did, or this was June 30 of 20, and the audit for this year will be submitted probably the next couple of weeks. There's no reason why it won't receive the same award. Okay, the Wayne County audit results. We've issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which is the highest level of assurance that the financial statements are fairly presented and free of material errors. Our responsibilities are threefold. One is the opinion, which we just issued and talked about. The other is audit evidence. We use audit evidence to support the information that's on the statement. Then we have supplementary and other information, such as pension and pension plans and OPEB reporting, and then we have information on ad valorem taxes. The management discussion and analysis, or MD&A. It has financial highlights, overview of the financial statements, comparative figures, budgetary highlights, economic factors in next year's budget. Of course, this is prepared by Wayne County's management. So if you're only going to review one statement or only have a limited amount of time, I would recommend that you spend some time reading, going over that statement. It's very, very informative. Okay, now we're going to get into some financial statement reporting, and Dan's going to go over that with you.
Good morning. So I started with Exhibit 3, and we just pulled out an excerpt, which is the general fund, because that's the fund where you have the most control over. So all the other ones have rules and restrictions. So we pulled this out for you just to show you some highlights from this statement. As you can see, very strong cash balance at the end of the fiscal year with about $45 million and some restricted cash of $10 million. Giving you total assets of a little over $69 million. Payables and other liabilities due to froms and things like that, only about $1.2 million. So that gives you a total fund balance for the general fund of about $66.5 million, which is up from the year before. So that's a good thing. And you can see that the unassigned balance, the balance that you have control over, is around $39 million. All the other ones are restricted or committed for other purposes, as you can see listed above. Next, then we jump to Exhibit 5. And Exhibit 5 is because it compares it to budget. Those same figures in the actual column are on the General Gov column on the Exhibit 4. So jumping isn't a bad thing, just jumping a little bit. So anyways, Exhibit 5, as you can see, just a few things to point out here that if I was reviewing the statement, I'd say, whoa, what's that? One, you can see your ad valorem taxes exceeded budget, and it exceeded last year. You're up about 4.5% there. Your local sales tax also showed a strong increase both over budget and last year of about 13%. Now, if I was reviewing the statement, I'd say, restricted intergovernmental, we didn't get $30 million. Well, that's not necessarily true. You budgeted for both ARPA and CARES Act funding. However, During the year, a standard came out, and those are being treated in a special revenue account and not in the general fund. So you're fine here. It's not a budgetary finding or anything like that. It just stands out because it's a large difference, and so I wanted to make sure you notice that. So you ended the year with total revenues in the general gov of just shy of $125 million. And then down below, this expenditures kind of breaks it up by different types of purposes: general gov, public safety, human services, and things like that. Again, you will see a large variance of $25 million. Same concept there, is that you plan to spend the money, but it's in a special revenue fund, and you just didn't adjust your budget. Not that big of a deal. And so your total expenditures ended up being $112 million, which is below your budget, so no budgetary findings, which is what we like to see. You did some transfer ins and some transfer outs during the year and ended exceeding revenues over expenditures by about $24 million. And then another thing I'm going to briefly point out on the bottom is we did have a fund balance restatement of about $5.5 million. However, there was a couple of things that caused that. One, EMS and EMS net. You guys moved it to the general fund, so it's no longer a business type fund, and that caused an increase in your fund balance, taking it out of the proprietary account and putting it in the general gov. Also, there was a new accounting standard this year with fiduciary funds. If you really want to know where that $5.5 million come from, one of the last pages of the note disclosures actually has a chart that breaks it down by type that increased that $5.5 million. Okay? So that's it.
Can I
Sure.
interrupt you at any point?
Sure. Anytime you want, Mr. Daughtry.
I'm an old man. I can't remember probably by the time we get through with this.
That's
But anyway, I am a little concerned about where you're showing the restricted intergovernment of negative 30 million.
Right.
And then under expenditures, you had, what? Explain this 30 million that you're
So
showing.
you had
as a-
planned to spend the ARPA and the CARES Act funding. However, during the year, it had to be moved to a special revenue account. So it's actually in Exhibits B and C, which are not reflected in your general fund.
I understand, but that looks like a real bad accounting procedure when you see a negative 30 million there. So,
Yeah.
but you're saying all you're doing is moving it from one fund to the
You
other.
expect, at the beginning of the year, when you wrote your budget for those funds, you expected to be able to manage it out of the general fund. However, guidance came down from the state later on saying you should put it in a special revenue fund. So the monies were moved to the special revenue fund, but the budget wasn't fixed for
So we're
that.
talking about budgetary.
Yes, that's just
Okay,
budgetary.
so in other words, budget, we put it in there.
Yeah, your economic and physical development at around 2.5 million, that's normal. That's about what you spend every year in that account, 2 to 2.5 million. So, it's just that you were under budget because you had thought that the ARPA.
Well, you didn't have it in red, but you had it in parentheses, and so I was just concerned.
I have it in red on my paper, if that makes you feel better. All right?
All right, and overall, our reserves were increased by,
24 million
383.
plus
But-
the 5 million, but the 5 million is just a
Okay.
change.
But in regards to the $24 million, you are accounting some of the ARP dollars or not?
Only if some ARPA funds were moved over because the county was allowed to use them.
That would have been in that particular situation, CARES funding, because
CARES
that's what we were,
Okay.
and, so between the CARES
Because
funding.
the ARPA money, you haven't spent any as of 6/30/21.
So the over collection of the sales and property taxes, the CARES funding, and then if you recall, we reimbursed ourselves back from general funds that we advanced to ourselves for a debt finance projects.
Okay.
So that was transfers in also.
Okay, good enough.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question.
It's a good year, though.
How much
Yes, sir.
was transferred from the CARES Act?
I'm sorry?
How much money was transferred from the CARES Act to the general fund?
To reimburse for the payroll expenses, I believe it was around $3.5 million.
So the total amount was only 4.7.
Right, and so we distributed some of that to the municipalities. Then there was an amount that was contracted with United Way to carry out some services for us, and then the rest we were allowed to use towards what they considered to be essential personnel expenses, which was like their salaries and fringes, and that was a transfer in to offset those expenses.
How much was that?
It was around $3.4 million. I can get you the specific figure if you would like it.
3.388.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
It's just been a big jump. So I
Yes.
personally, I would like to know why we had such a big jump. You know what I mean? It's just on the paper. It
And
looks
some-
great, but still, I don't want citizens to think this is what we're doing every year. 'Cause it's not. You know what I'm
No.
saying? This is just because of funds that came in, and it's a
If it makes you feel better,
great
last
thing.
year was not this big of a jump.
yeah. I know. Yes.
Well, that's a good point. And the other thing I want to point out about that is on the sales taxes and property taxes. So that was almost $8 million over collected. So this particular year that we're discussing is the year that we were going, when we did budget, we were going into COVID not knowing what was going to happen. And at that time, when we prepared budget, everybody from the state, federal, local government commission was all saying, do not anticipate growth in your taxes, your sales taxes. So we actually budgeted extremely conservatively that year. Well, no one knew that sales taxes and property taxes were going to do so well despite the pandemic, which I think online sales really accounted for a lot of that with your sales taxes. So that's why you see such an increase. And you are absolutely right. We would not expect to see that every year. That was a result of some very conservative budgeting for the COVID pandemic.
And us raising the property tax, how much did that count within this budget?
No, sir. You'll
next
see it in the
budget.
next,
Okay.
that's
Okay.
right.
All right.
The transfer in of 14,263,572, where did that come from, the transfer?
So that would have been a combination of CARES money. So when they present the general fund, they are presenting all of what we call our 100 funds. So you're talking about what we call our general fund, but you also have the schools, you have DSS, health, Wayne Community College, all of those funds in there. So this would be a combination of the CARES funding coming in from the Special Revenue Fund. It would also be, I believe, funding that would be coming in from the debt reimbursement, where we advanced funds to our capital projects until we secured the debt financing. So then when we received the debt financing, we would have moved those funds back from the capital projects to our general funds. And if I'm remembering right, that was about $5 to $6 million just by itself.
And there's a chart on page 100.
Okay, so I'll let you, if you want to tell them.
There's a chart on page 100 that totals to the 14 million, so that you could just look at it in more detail there to understand where it came from.
I just know how the LGC is about transferring funds.
Yeah, their bigger concern is you transferring funds to your proprietary funds, and if you come from your proprietary funds to here, which yours was not.
And we made sure in our explanation of transfers for that debt service reimbursement, not debt service reimbursement, but debt reimbursement, that we worded it as careful as we could, so they didn't think we were transferring money for debt service.
Yeah.
Right.
So we've worded that as carefully as we could. If they have follow-up questions, we are prepared to answer those.
Alice,
Yes, sir.
you said that, when we prepared the budget, we were relying on what the state and the feds and local government commission on the sales tax and the property tax, and we did ours very conservative.
Yes, sir.
I can see it on sales tax, but why would it affect the property tax? I mean,
Well, at the time.
property don't go away.
Well, it doesn't, but at the time, there was anticipation that your collection rates may go down. And there was also some discussion about not forgiveness, but maybe delay in payment.
right.
There was discussion going on. It never happened, and it never materialized. But when we were preparing budget, COVID started in March, and we were preparing budget in April and May. So there were a lot of uncertainties.
We were scared. And just to be very honest, we were very scared. And I think with respect to the property tax, the thought process was people were probably losing jobs and they may have not had the revenue to pay the taxes. So we would have had a lot that were in arrears. So we were just really flat and was, better being safe than sorry.
Okay.
Okay, we good?
If I could, based upon your page 100,
Page 100?
yeah, I want to point out that we, in fact, had taken dollars out of our fund balance and prepaid some items on projects. All we did was reimburse the fund balance. So it may look like the fund balance went dramatically up. It was really a lot of reimbursement.
It's more like a,
Right, right. So you're not seeing a reflection of where we actually spent those funds.
and you'll actually, later on, there is a graph that we will cover the available fund balance, and you will see exactly what he spoke about later on when we get down.
Well, I mean, you're looking at basically, if I'm reading this right, around $10 million was reimbursed, is that correct?
Yes.
And then on top of that, you'll see the CARES dollars,
of the
which was
almost
3.3 million. But about 10 million of that 24 was actually a reimbursement,
Right.
that where we borrowed from. Okay?
That
so
makes sense. You'll see it
I'm
later on
trying
in
to
a
dumb
nice
it down
graph.
so I understand it.
You'll see it in a graph further that will really stand
Okay,
out to you
great.
for that.
Thanks so much.
Any other questions? Okay, so just going to give you kind of a visual look at revenues. And the bottom right corner is last year, or 2020, and then the main one is 2021. And you will see that your revenue sources, these pie pieces almost look identical. And so your revenue sources mainly come from property tax, local option sales tax, some human services grants, and a little bit for the general gov and public safety. And it looks very comparative year to year. It's just a good visual representation to where you know how much you're getting from different sources there. And then the next one is expenses by function. And again, the pie looks identical. You would think I didn't change my charts, and I did. And you spend the bulk of your money on education, human services, public safety, and of course, a percentage to operate the general government. And that's where the bulk of the money is spent during the year. Okay? So good visual there. Okay, next, there are other reports that Paul did not cover that we issue that are required because you're a government entity, some of it because of your federal and state funding levels. So the first one we do is we have to do what's called the Yellow Book Audit, and that is a report on internal controls. We did report a significant deficiency, which we will go in more detail on a later slide, okay? The federal programs, that is all that money for social services, public health, senior services, other little pots of money that you receive, has to be tested to a certain percentage. It was 20% this year, but because of a finding in medical assistance, it'll be 40% that we have to test next year. And we test any program over $750,000 in a 3-year period, and then we pick some what we call B programs that are over $187,000 and up to $750,000 until we get to that ratio of testing that we have to do, okay? Medical assistance did have a small finding where they calculated income wrong on one of the files that we pulled, and so therefore we have a finding, and the social services director has already addressed that finding, and her response is listed later on in the audit. And then for the state programs that we test, state programs are a little bit different. The level's $500,000 if it's state-funded monies, and we have to test 40% regardless of the year. And we had no findings on any of your state-funded programs. And so these are reports that are required because you are government entities. Our profession required us, because we had a significant deficiency, to report a communication of significant deficiencies. Again, I'll tell you, not to beat up this significant deficiency, we'll go through it later on in the presentation. Also, other recommendation is future accounting changes for leases, which Allison is well aware of this change, but it will have a significant effect for 6/30/22. And some adjustments will be made. And then the final letter we issue is called a communication to those charged with governance. There was a change in accounting policies, which I mentioned earlier on, that caused some of that restatement, and that was the implementation of GASB number 84, or fiduciary activities. All the monies that you hold on behalf of other people are now, some of them are treated in the general fund, some are special revenue funds, and just a few remain as what's called custodial funds. And that was a significant change in accounting procedures during the year. So we have to make you aware of that. There's accounting estimates that are made throughout the audit. We have to estimate OPEB. The state gives us an estimate for LGERS, LEOSA, current portion of debt, bad debt allowance on your accounts receivable, and those depreciation. Those are probably the most significant estimates through your financial statements. But we follow standards set by our accounting profession, and the government gives, like I said, some of the estimates, and we rely on those estimates when we prepare the financial statements. No real significant difficulties in performing the audit. Finance office is always very accommodating, and no disagreements with management, and we do require both Allison and Craig to sign what's called a management representation letter. That tells us that they've answered our questions and they didn't try to hide things from us, and they do several different things. It's about 5 pages long. It's quite lengthy. Okay, so those are the reports we issued. Now, the state decided that some firms weren't presenting their audits. It was news to me because we've always presented all our audits, whether it's a larger one like this one or a small little nonprofit. We always present our audits. So they've decided that auditors weren't presenting their audits, and that we have only a certain number of days after the audit's been issued to present our audit. That's 45 days. And we have to go over certain performance indicators that their form, when we submit the audit, calculates these indicators for us. Okay, so the next 2 pages are kind of the performance indicators for a county government. They have performance indicators for towns, they have them for sanitary districts and other types of government activities, but the list we have on the next 2 pages are for county government.
But make it clear, we were doing ours, just other entities were not doing theirs, therefore we've got to abide by these rules.
Well, everyone has to abide by these performance indicators. It's just the LGC telling us what we have to present now. We can't say we don't want to present this.
But we were doing our part.
We were already presenting.
Okay,
Yeah, we
okay.
present every single year. We have, we always.
I just want that clear to the public,
Yes.
that we were doing our part.
We've always presented our audits to the board. Same with, like I said, we do it as a firm standard. So it was a surprise to me that this wasn't the standard across the state. It would be more that.
Am I understanding you say that they are recommending general fund balance should be between 20% and 39%?
Available fund balance.
Available fund
And
balance.
I'm just going to briefly go over this because I've got you a graph and more detail.
I'm sure you've got a graph for it.
Okay.
But I want to emphasize that. So
Yeah.
they're recommending 20,
Correct. That available fund balance should be between 20 and 39%.
even though the statute requires 8%.
That state stabilization is 8%.
That's correct.
Right.
But they're recommending 20 and above. Why are they asking when the statutes require 8%, they're recommending 20? Just asking.
I don't know. They call it your working fund balance is the
All right.
difference.
Who's recommending the 20?
The state.
The
The
s-
state. This
the state
is
is.
the local government commission,
Is recommending 20.
20 to
But the
39%.
statute is requiring 8.
Well, you also adopted a working fund balance several years ago. So,
I agree.
so you have one that's around 14% when you add the two. But that's just,
Where the statute is
I
saying
think-
8. And
I
Yeah.
think what the LGC has done is started looking at what is the average and what for all
Right.
counties and municipalities and saying, this is standard, this is kind of best practices. So I think what they're looking at is recommending those best
you
practices.
just answered the question.
Right.
Thank you so much.
and 8%, everyone throws out 8%. It is not an 8% calculation. It is a balance of receivables, restricted cash, and other things. That is roughly 8%, but it's usually not 8%. I've never gotten 8%.
Thank you for the clarification.
So, anyways, so general fund balance, of course, that we just talked about, that's one of the things we will present in another slide. The water and sewer fund has some specific items that they are looking at because sewer systems are a huge deal across the state right now, like we were discussing a little bit before. There's also some just general performance indicators, like is your report issued timely? Did you have negative collection for your tax levy, decrease in values, budget issues, things like that, which again, we'll go into those more details on our following slides. So these are the required performance indicators that I have been told I have to present to the governing board, okay? So next, here we go. There's your general fund balance. It should be between 20 to 39%, and it's an important reserve to provide cash flows during periods of declining revenues and unforeseen expenditures. If you look at when property taxes come in, your revenues go like this. You get these peaks and then you get these down periods because they're due this date. And so you have fluctuating revenues, and that's why fund balance available is so important to entities. Now, Wayne County has traditionally had very strong fund balance, and so this isn't a huge issue for Wayne County. But other government entities, this is a huge issue. They have to plan to make it through those periods when the property taxes aren't coming in. And so the state just is adopting a standard across the board for everybody to present these figures. And you just got to remember that your funds are well managed, well operated, and you're comfortable through the periods, but other entities are not quite like that.
What caused from 2020 from 1637, the 31.08%?
Just what he mentioned earlier. You transferred some money to pre-fund some capital projects, knowing that this debt was coming to pay you back. Just what he mentioned before. And so you had this peak where it went down and then back up where you paid yourself back.
We knew it was going to drop down, but it was temporarily, just as soon as we went ahead and put out the loans, then we paid ourselves back. So it restored those percentages.
Right. So, next, we have the water and sewer fund. And they suggest that a quick ratio, that is your current assets divided by your current liability, should be greater than 1. A negative balance indicates fund is not covering cost, okay? And as you can see, it's kind of peaked and stuff like that, but it is barely covering its cost here. And next slide, you actually have something in red, which when you have something in red on this state's Excel spreadsheet workbook that I have to prepare for the audit, when you have something for red, the governing board has to address it with the LGC by a certain date, and I have that on the last slide.
One question.
Sure.
Craig, I knew we increased the sewer cost and stuff, the rates. When did we do that? Was that in?
We've done that,
I think we've done it 2 years.
The past couple of years. We are really the past 3 years.
So this last year would not have affected this
We went up-
presentation.
I think we went up
2 years.
8%, and then in August of last year, we may have gone up 18%.
Yeah.
It was a sharper increase,
So
but
that
would
would
not
be
be.
for this year. Yes, ma'am.
If I could discuss that just a little bit, because this is when we recognized we really had a problem.
Yeah.
This ended June 30th. And then through your efforts and others, we actually implemented some controls in there.
Right.
And those things went into effect after July 1 of reducing I&I, solving the problem at the mobile home park, just a number of issues where we changed, and now we are in the positive.
Well,
So-
and where the city raised their rates last year, I think 17%.
Right.
We did not raise our rates by 17% by July 1, so we did, it was either August or September, we increased our rates by 17% as well this year.
So thankfully, we saw this before it got in the red, but it was
Well,
close.
it's in the red on the next page.
Oh, it's on the red then,
Yes,
on the
it is.
next page, okay.
So don't get too excited. So next you have 2 other ones.
Don't get too
You have
excited.
operating net income or loss, which should be greater than 0. A negative balance indicates that the fund rates are not covering cost. And then you have unrestricted cash versus operating expenses. It should be greater than 16% or 2 months operating expenses, and 16% is the bare minimum to keep the fund from experiencing cash flow issues. So that second one, you're meeting. 63%, you're well above that unrestricted cash versus operating expenses. But your operating net income was a loss of $136,000. Now, you took some steps after the fact, and that is fine. But one of the conversations I had with Allison is that you have a number, the number of customers are
Like
5, 7, something like that. How do you expect 7 people to pay for all those costs? You're expecting 7 entities that you're raising the rates year after year after year. Okay, so maybe something needs to be evaluated. Is this truly a proprietary fund? If you were a sanitary district, I do 2 sanitary district audits, they have thousands of customers to absorb the cost. You have 6, 5, 6, 7, I can't remember the number. You only have 6 or 7 customers absorbing all the cost of the sewer system. Some of it which helps school district, Grantham's one of them. And so you might want to, I think Allison's gonna reach out during the year to the LGC about this. Is it truly a proprietary fund if you have to raise their rates every other year? And do you expect 5 or 6 people to continue to support it? Or 5 or 6 entities to continue to support it?
Our rates are dictated by the city.
But the city has a large base to absorb their rates.
What I'm saying is our rates are dictated by the
They
city,
are.
so we really don't
Yes.
have any control over, I mean, we either gonna go further in the hole or, but I understand
You
what you're
could.
saying.
If they keep raising the rates, you have to keep raising the rates, or you're always gonna have this finding, or you accept this finding, leave it a proprietary fund, and you tell the LGC, we have 6 customers. They can't continue to support the cost. Because you're already funding them. You fund them every year, a couple $100,000 to support the continued operations. So it's just something you might want to consider. Is this truly a proprietary fund? Just like EMS. You decided that EMS was not a proprietary fund. It wasn't going to make it wasn't going to make a profit. So you made it a general government department.
And this might not be the time to discuss this, but with us addressing I&I issues, is the dollar figure going to continue to be this high, or is it going to be?
It should go down because, again, we're paying, where our cost is paying Goldsboro. And it's the I&I that we're paying Goldsboro because, we really can't truly bill, the customer for, so it's our cost that we're paying.
That's what I'm asking is if we're addressing the I&I, we shouldn't be
It should be
this far in the red anyway.
We're hoping that it will reduce greatly, yes, sir.
Let me get some clarification on that. Again, I'm gonna dumb it down for me.
That's fine.
What you're suggesting is that where originally this was set up as an enterprise zone, so to
Right.
speak, where they were expecting expansion, and we had our own sewer plant at that time, so we were expecting more customers. Well, we now have abandoned the plant, and since we have so few customers, it may be accounting-wise better to move it to the general fund, so if there's a negative, we budget as a department, so to speak, versus an enterprise.
Well, like Ms. Saycock said, the LGC is watching sewer systems. They're watching sewer systems. And if you continue to have a negative, then is it a proprietary fund?
So are you recommending that we move it over?
No, I'm not making that recommendation. I'm suggesting management contact the LGC and discuss this with them because it is
I
only
can
5
see
or
some
6
advantages
customers.
of doing that.
We really haven't had that deep a discussion about, but, since all this just
Well,
got here, but.
it's
but
this
we-
performance indicator
right.
popped up and we didn't know
Right.
what they were gonna tell us
So-
we had to present.
But we will pursue that as management.
Now, the good
and
news
come back with
is,
a recommendation.
because of the recommended changes that have taken place in the sewer, we're actually in the positive. We got that report, I think, at our last meeting or the meeting before.
Well, and that's a good thing. So you might not have this finding at the end of the year. But if the city raises rates again, are you gonna raise their rates again?
Absolutely.
4 or 5 years raising rates or something like that gets,
I think that we do need to take a look at whether or not to move it into the
Yes,
general.
and the poor customers, they're stuck. They gotta have the water or the sewer, they have to have that service. So therefore, they get stuck with whatever you charge them.
Because of these changes, there is a higher degree of probability that this finding may reoccur.
Yes, I think so. I think so from what I've seen with what the city charges some of the
Right.
other sanitary districts and things like
And if it is in
that.
our general budget, then that finding would not be there.
Right, no, it would not be there.
Okay.
It would not be there. But
got it.
if you're constantly supporting it,
Sure.
then it is not a proprietary business type.
Which we are constantly supporting that.
Well, one of the changes we've made, we've gone away from reading water meters to sewer meters, and there's a big difference in that.
Big difference, yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully we should see some
Good,
improvement.
okay, I'm sorry, I'll try not
That's
to.
fine. All right, so next.
But even if we move it, I mean, the expense is gonna still be there. It may not show up in the red, but the expense is not gonna change.
Oh, now, you're right there.
And
We
I
still
agree.
have to monitor that on a continuing
But if you
basis.
look at the actual statement, you are giving them money every year to pay those expenses. So how is it any different? Your transfers will decrease by what you normally transfer over to the sewer fund to help maintain their operations.
Do we need to clarify, we've not abandoned anything, right?
No, we're not
We
abandoning
just,
anything.
we just extended temporarily, delayed the working process of the plant. We've not abandoned anything in case we got to go back
Well,
to
at
it.
one point, we had our own
I know,
processing plant.
I know, that we've not, we just temporarily, anyway, go ahead. We've not abandoned anything.
Well, now that I don't know. It's no longer connected.
It's not in operation.
It's not in
It's not
operation.
in operation. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, onward. Okay, so next are the more general. So we have the audit report being submitted timely. No, this audit was not submitted timely. This is the first year we had to get an extension, and mainly due to the implementation of the Munis software and some other time constraints on the finance staff. We received the trial balance later. The LGC approved that extension, and we did meet the approved extended deadline. The LGC received your audit Saturday, so we did meet that thing. Next, you have the budgeted tax levy for the general fund, that it has no negative percentage. You didn't have that, you were 5% positive percentage. Decrease in property values, not expected, that's an NA. Any budgetary issues, no. Any court order or DEQ requirement, no. Is the unit on the unit assistant list? You do not want to be on the unit assistant list. That is where the LGC's eyes are on you.
all
So
caps, no.
that's a no. No statutory violations, debt service issues, or landfill closings. Any material or significant findings reported in the audit. Yes, we did report one on the departmental operations of the Register of Deeds. And I'll go into more details on the next page. So this is the final page of my presentation, and that is the unit response letter. Once the LGC said, management might know about these findings, but does the board know about the finding? And so therefore, they've decided that when any of those items turn red on the tab that with these indicators, then the unit has to respond, and you must respond in this case by March 25th. Must be signed by the chairman of the board, this letter. And there are suggestions online that would help you write that letter, and it has to be submitted electronically, I believe, online too. So anyways, sewer and water fund, we just kind of discussed that at length. That is one of the items that you must respond to because of your operating net income loss. You must respond to that. The steps that you've just told me verbally can go in that letter to respond to that. The audit report submitted timely. No, we met the extension date. We do not expect the same issues next year. They will have had another year with Munis, and that's what I would respond to that. And then we had one, it says a material and or significant finding reported in the audit, which we mentioned back that I said I'd go into more details at this point. And so we did issue a significant deficiency with the department operations of the registered deeds. This was discussed with the LGC before we made our decision to do that, and the LGC felt that it protects us as an audit firm. I mean, everyone remembers Wake County Register of Deeds. It protects us as an audit firm. It protects management and the county also, that they are aware that the operations are not running as designed for that department. Some of the things that we found were segregation of duties issues. There's not enough staff on hand for the segregation of duties to continue. And then we found significant invoices not paid. They were not material, they're not large in dollar amount, but there were payments to the NCDHHS based on the marriage license. Domestic Violence Center payments, all these payments, none of them had been made between January and June. And so therefore, it wasn't significant in dollar amount. If it was significant in dollar amount, it probably would have been what we call a material weakness, which is a level above significant deficiency, okay? So we issued a significant deficiency because the dollar amount wasn't there to say that this is a material weakness. We felt that the staffing and some training issues were the most cause of that. Had discussions with the Register of Deeds on what she's trying to do. However, we did choose to use Mr. Honeycutt's response on page 216 in your audit. That was his written response on what the county was doing to help improve these operations as a whole. There were some other minor things that we did not note, purchasing card issues and some labor issues, but they were so immaterial as far as dollar amount that we did not note that in the audit and kind of stuck to the bigger things at hand with the segregation of duties and the failure to make timely payments. I do believe subsequent to year end, these payments have been caught up and invoices have been paid based on what I was informed.
On segregation of duties, do they have a standard operating procedure written?
They have the written one that was in place beforehand, but it's not being followed.
Okay.
I believe Angie has a copy of it because she sends me all the departments' segregation of duties every year.
Did we ask for a written response from the Register of Deeds regarding these
We
funds?
did ask for it, and I spoke with her on phone suggesting how to respond, and in our opinion, it wasn't usable. It didn't really address what we discussed on the phone, addressed this, and this, and it didn't really address that, so we chose not to use it. And our backup plan all along was for the county manager to respond because, as the LGC puts it, he's the highest authority.
Well, if there are findings as such, any department manager would be asked to reply to that and also have corrective action.
Yeah, the corrective action is what's on that page 216.
216.
Which is Mr. Honeycutt's corrective action.
And the corrective action are things that has been approved by the Board of Commissioners. So this was, really the policy.
Agreed, but if the Board of Commissioners approve those actions and they're not implemented, then that doesn't solve anything. I mean, we're going to have the same finding next year.
Possibility, but the bills are being paid, so it will be a little bit better. So.
I mean, the findings are clearly from after or before any of these actions had taken place. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you have a new system that came into play. That was an issue also. You know what I mean? It's like, can't blame it on just one department. It was also issues with that software that came in. I guess everybody was confused, and there was some invoice issues. You know what I mean? That seemed to be one of the main things that held it up. And so, the manager has implemented some things. The board approved it. Hopefully, those things will change within the next year. So it's not nothing. It didn't seem major or anything. It's just.
No, if we thought it was material, we would have made it a material weakness.
Yes.
But the dollar amounts are minor. But there are some issues with, these fees the state expect every month didn't get paid for 6 months or more. I think it didn't happen until almost October before they were caught up on these fees. And that shouldn't happen. Operations should continue regardless of who's in charge of the department, whether there's a manager in place or not of that department. Even though social services has a medical assistance finding, Kim McGuire's not at fault necessarily, but she is the head of that department, so she addressed the finding. So normally, yes, we would use a head of department to address the findings. It just was not, it didn't really lay out the steps on what was going to be done to fix the issue, so therefore we did not use that finding. And I discussed it with the LGC because I wanted to put both findings in, and they said no.
I remember even when those invoices we discussed them as a board also. So, it was a lot of issues with communication between the department and the finance director. A lot of different issues going on. And, so if they were done by October, they actually weren't the reason why the report was late.
reason why what report. This report, that has nothing, that was just this has nothing to do with the late audit report.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure of,
This
because
was
I think
under
a
the
lot of
gen-
people are confused right now with that. You know what I'm saying?
It is one
That
of
was the
the
reason.
general performance indicators.
Okay.
That says material and/or significant findings reported in the audit is one of the general
Okay.
performance. Now, I do know that the finance office did have multiple times where they've spent a lot of time down there, and that took their time away from preparing for the audit. I was up there once when they would get calls to go help that department, and therefore I couldn't go to Janice.
But
Things
even
like
with
that.
I mean, I know when.
I wouldn't say she was, or that department caused the
Yes,
audit to be late.
that's what I wanna
think we
make clear.
expected it to be a little bit late anyways because
Okay.
of Munis. It's just that department helped confound the time that the finance office had to spend, because they do a lot of the schedules and the stuff that they have to prepare to give to us to
Well,
audit.
yeah, well, even with that,
But it is a separate thing. It's two performance indicators. So there's three things that as a board you're going to respond to. You're going to respond to your loss in your sewer fund. You're going to respond to how you're going to make sure the audit's on time next year. And then you're going to respond to the department. So it's three things that you have to respond to.
I just want to make sure, because the way that it was presented, it seemed as if.
No, I presented it.
I'm talking.
Oh, I
One second.
understand.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. That it seemed as if, the register of deeds was the cause of it, but in technicality, she wasn't. It may have been some issues, but even with the bills being paid late, there were some issues there that the invoices was there way before the October, and there was some issues why the payment wasn't sent out. So we had issues there, and we discussed that as a board also. So, I mean, the main thing is that, I want to make sure that the public and everybody here sitting knows that mainly it was the system that caused us to be late more than anything, regardless of whatever department or whatever did this or did that, because even with the register of deeds having late invoices, I'm pretty sure every department maybe was struggling with that system, or the finance department had issues with that system or whatever. So that was our main reason for being late, not.
Well, the extended contract was prepared by the county, and both of those items were noted as the reason why the audit was going to be late.
But still, you've been looking at it as in, regardless of whatever occurred, you're talking from October till December, you still had 2 months in there to do to get this thing together. And I understand it being late, it could be a few months late, but that's everybody working together. Regardless of whatever, if money has to be paid, those invoices should be paid regardless, whether it's coming from the register of deeds, the finance, whatever, because the bills come in, you know what I'm saying? So I'm pretty sure a lot of people are seeing those bills. I don't know how that goes, but I just don't like the point of how this was explained, you know what I'm saying? I understand the letter having to be written and this having to be put in it, but I want to make it clear that this wasn't the sole reason for this report being late. I want that to be clear.
No.
It was clear on the audit contract. We put 2 reasons on the audit contract for the audit being late. Those 2 reasons were software implementation, and there were no issues with the software. The software is working as expected. It was implemented timely, but the LGC even has that as a pre-listed reason, because a lot of times when you have software implementation, it is such a large undertaking that it does take additional time to prepare for that audit. And as I think I explained before, the other reason we had on there was due to the hundreds of hours we spent training the Register of Deeds office. Now, had we had one or the other, I think we would have been able to successfully complete the audit timely. But the 2 together, we just didn't have the staff to split to that degree. I mean, we just didn't have. The software implementation is what we planned for. We didn't have the additional staff until November to address the hundreds of hours we were spending training Register of Deeds.
But the process and the training's in place now, so we shouldn't have this issue next year, correct?
We hope so.
I mean, the process is in place, the
process-
munis is in place, the training's been
munis is in
done.
place,
The
yeah.
So you shouldn't have that
the
issue.
position in finance, the processes that we're working through we're hoping it'll be much, much smoother.
I mean, that's
moving
fine, and
forward.
and it should be. I just wanted to make things clear to why.
It was a
this-
combination.
This audit
It was
was
a
late,
combination.
you know what I'm saying? And I mean,
Yes, sir.
it just seems to me that the little bit more, too much of the blame was going one area. You know what I'm saying? To be about, mainly training and invoices. I mean, if we're running entire government here, training and invoices shouldn't be a total reason why audit is late. No matter how many hours you spent training, it wasn't like the whole entire department went to go train. That's my point. And at the end of the day, you know, it was a system that was implemented more than probably anything. I'm guaranteeing that even talking right now, 90% of that was that system that caused this to be late. But it seems like it's a flip, that the 90% was the Register of Deeds. If you were to sit and listen, and that's my only thing.
I
I'm perfectly
disagree. It
fine
was
with
not 90% the system, and it did take 4 and 5 staff members spending hours of time a week. We're just stating what happened. I don't know how else to state it. We're stating what happened.
And my only comment would be invoices. I thought it's at a point in time. It's at June 30th, 21, where these invoices were paid. I asked the Register of Deeds to say that they were all paid subsequent to 6/30/21, and it just didn't get articulated enough to go in the audit. But they were paid subsequent, but our comment is for a point in time. At June 30th, 21, these are the issues that existed. Not necessarily that everything's been corrected afterwards. That's management's responsibility to say, hey, we fixed it afterwards. But at June 30th, 21, these issues existed. And that's where our audit comes from and our finding comes from. The finding is separate from, as far as a performance indicator and how you have to address the state, that's 2 performance indicators you have to address regardless of whatever the reason was. They're 2 separate things, 2 separate issues that you have to address.
Here was my concern as a commissioner dating back when we saw we had some issues. First of all, in the implementation of the software, it was done throughout the county in all departments, and no other department had any issues. Am I correct?
Correct.
But they had issues, they just worked through them
That's
faster.
correct.
Because, I mean, they would get calls
during
even when
this
I was doing
period of
audit work.
time,
Yeah.
our finance staff was constantly, the hundreds of hours that were spent in this department trying to get these proper documents submitted, coded, signed for, and this went on for months. And I soon realized that the county of Wayne is the responsible party here. They don't have an audit specifically for the Register of Deeds. That is a department of the county of Wayne. And looking and seeing the difficulty here, this board took action to try to remedy it, to actually hire a specific person to handle those reports. So we took corrective action as soon as we could on that portion. But the problem here is now we have reverted back by another policy change to where they are manually signed off for and coded and submitted, faxed up to departments. So we went back to the system that we had before Munis, correct?
Right.
So we were trying to solve the problem and make it and streamline it. But my understanding is that those invoices are not being coded properly. So it's one of these things that we're responsible as a board. The county of Wayne's responsible, but we are not really having much control. And I'm just concerned we may have this same finding again next year. I mean, I'm just saying. So to blame it on the software, I can understand anybody who has a problem in regards to a change in software. We got no problem with that. But when we have spent hundreds of hours trying to train the personnel there to handle it, and they still can't, then the only resolution in my mind was to revert back to the manual. And that's what we've got in place now.
Well, also, we just, during her presentation, she said that, the Register of Deeds was short-staffed.
Yeah.
So that's also an issue, you know what I mean? So therefore,
Staffing affects segregation of duties.
Yes, so you have a lot of different things that you're looking at that haven't been handled. So it's more than just, one thing or another, but even with the, like I said, we knew about the invoices, we talked about that, and then the letter came in, it was some issues of time delay from why the checks weren't sent out in time from the letter. It was a lot of different issues going on within that time. It took, the letter came in, it took 2 weeks before the checks went out forward, which didn't make any sense during that time to me, and I questioned that. So now, to sit, that's what I'm saying. It's a lot of different issues going on. It just seems that there's one more area of blame going towards one department instead of it's saying, okay, we had a new system. Look, some issues there. New register of deeds, didn't know everything that was going on. We trained, spent hours training. Boom, that is what it is. But it just seems like it's just making this way bigger of an issue than what it was. So hopefully with the new system, the new things that our city manager and the board has implemented, we won't have this problem. We may, but also we have to look at hiring that personnel that's needed for that area of that department, which the Register of Deeds has been asking for a while. She said she was short-staffed. She told us she was short-staffed. She didn't get the staff. Let's be honest. So those are my issues that I'm having. So those are the things that I want to see also. That should be something that might need to be added to this letter, that we're going to look at staffing as well. So that's it.
Is the staffing solved? The staffing issue solved?
The staffing, but the budgeted positions are the same for the last.
Well, I ain't asking that. I'm
But
talking about
I
how they feel.
think that the positions have been filled. There have been some transfers, but I'm not sure exactly if she's at full staffed or not.
I think she's close based on a conversation I had a week or so ago, and she told me that training was her next focus.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my question here is do we know why? I mean, has there been a lot of turnover? I mean,
There's been turnover this year, yes, sir.
okay. Yeah, I guess we do exit interviews to find out why.
We do exit.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, can we move on with audit report?
I think we're about to
done.
finish. I think you're about to finish, are you
We're
not?
done. You have till March 25th to issue your letter.
Well, again, I think the board is concerned anytime that our audit has findings. And we need to address the findings and try to solve the problem so we don't have repetitive. If not, we're going to be on the radar screen of the LGC, and I don't think we want to do that. We are about to borrow a lot of money, and we need the full support of the LGC to allow us to do that. So the finding is very important, and hopefully staff will get a response so that we can get that back off to the LGC as quickly as possible.
And we'll also work on, looking at water and sewer as a general fund or keep it as an enterprise option.
It's just an idea.
And-
I don't know.
And we'll kick that
Reach
around
out
and
to
talk with
LGC
Dana.
too.
But I do have one last question. And I'm sorry, Mr. Aycock. Am I wrong in saying that the county of Wayne is responsible to design and implement the policies and procedures of operation?
I believe, the way I look at the county is you have general policies and procedures that come from the county manager and finance as a whole, and then each department writes ones that meet at least the standard of the finance office and the county, that they at least meet those standards, and then they can tweak it because DSS has more staff than this department.
As
They
long
can
as it
tweak
meets-
but as long as it meets the segregation of duties issues, and that's the biggest thing with internal controls. Yes, there's some law in it, some law dictates these procedures, like deposits have to be made by the next morning, things like that. Laws dictate some of the procedures, but your policies and procedures should dictate the departments, and it's up to the departments to operate within your policies and procedures as a whole.
So,
But they might be
again,
tweaked because
if
they're all a
we
little
implement a
different.
policy, here's the sheriff here. He's got a department, and he's independently elected. And if the county implements a policy and said, we want you to provide us with invoices, we want it's signed off by somebody in your authorized person in your department, and then to code it to one of your accounting accounts and fax that into the office, that is perfectly okay for the county to implement and demand that the sheriff implement that.
Unless the
policy.
sheriff wants to pay that invoice.
Unless he wants to pay the invoice.
He needs to follow your procedures,
Okay.
whatever those may be.
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
thank you. Is there anything else?
Yes, Mr. Chair. First
Yes.
off, thank you for you and your firm for doing a great job. Appreciate it. I just wanted to highlight our fund balance. I think we kind of got away from
We did.
how important that is. You know, looking at almost 48% fund balance, that's something that you don't see every day.
Right.
You know, so I think.
And so any findings, whether it's social services, the sewer issue, all these three things, that is not going to hold you back with the LGC. Wayne County is traditionally a very strong county, and it's not an issue. It is just, the only reason is this is the initial year of these things, and therefore, I wanted to make sure the board understood that these are presented not by my choice. Some of them we would have still presented. We still would have mentioned that we issued a significant deficiency. We wouldn't have mentioned the sewer system, but we are required now by the state to do these. But as far as any additional funding or things like that, yes, Wayne County is very strong fiscally. They've weathered in the past dips and issues and when the economy tanks and things like that, and they stay strong. And that's just a credit to management that it has continued to stay strong.
Thank you so much.
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Motion to accept.
Do what now?
A motion to accept.
We need a motion to accept
So
the
moved.
annual audit for Wayne County
So
fiscal year
moved.
2021.
So moved.
We've got a motion on the floor. Any discussion on the motion?
I would like to say thank you, Allison and Craig, for a great job.
Thank you.
I'll turn that back to Allison.
Both of you.
Okay, anything further? Any other discussion? Okay, if not, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Thank you, that's unanimous. All right, we've got unfinished business at this point. We've got a report, and Commissioner Gurley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Williams, Staff Attorney Neal, and myself met to discuss the public comment policy, and we submit the following as changes. On Section 3, Subclass D, the current version states comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers may not give their allotted time to another speaker to increase that person's allotted time. Our proposed change is basically just the amount of time. Comments are limited to 4 minutes per speaker. Speakers may not give their allotted time to another speaker to increase that person's allotted time. That's that section.
Okay.
Do we need to go over all of them?
Yeah, let's do, if everybody's okay,
Okay.
let's go over all of them.
All right, Section 3, Subclass H. Current version states the use of video, PowerPoints, or other electronic media is prohibited without the permission of the chairman. Our proposed change to this is the use of video, PowerPoints, or other electronic media is prohibited without the permission of the chairman. And this is the change. Any external hard drives or other foreign equipment which will be used at the meeting shall be presented to the clerk no later than 4 working days before the meeting. This is to ensure that all materials may be screened by our Wayne County Information Technology Department. Section 3, Subclass I. The current version states speakers wishing to distribute materials to the Board of Commissioners should provide copies of material to the clerk to the board, who will then circulate copies to the board members. Our proposed change is just one word. Speakers wishing to distribute written material to the Board of Commissioners should provide copies of material to the clerk of the board, who will then circulate copies to the board members. That coincides with the one right before it being electronic. Next section is Section 3, Subclass K. The current version states individuals who sign up but cannot speak due to the time constraints will be carried to the next regular meeting of the Wayne County Board of Commissioners and placed first on the public comment agenda. That we had to kind of interject some wording in that. The proposed change is individuals who sign up but cannot speak due to the time constraints will be carried to the next regular meeting of the Wayne County Board of Commissioners, and this is the section where we put in which public comments are scheduled and placed first on the public comment agenda. Next, we go to section 3, subclass, where that would be L, isn't that right?
I think so, yeah.
Current version states, public comment is not intended to require the Wayne County Board of Commissioners to answer any questions posed by the speaker. Action on items brought up during the public comment period will be at discretion of the Wayne County Board of Commissioners. This is the section that we've changed. This is the current version. Commissioners shall not comment and or answer any questions posed by the speaker. Commissioners who wish to address topics raised during the public comments may choose to do so at a future meeting or the Board of Commissioners. Our proposed change is as follows. Public comment is not intended to require the Wayne County Board of Commissioners to answer any questions posed by the speaker. Action on items brought up during the public comment period will be at the discretion of the Wayne County Board of Commissioners. This is the section that is tweaked. Commissioners are encouraged to address topics raised during public comments during commissioners' reports in order to preserve the 30-minute period for other speakers. So we've gone from 3 minutes. We have a 30-minute time frame. We've gone from 3 minutes to 4 minutes, which eliminates possibly 3 speakers. So we discussed this at length, and we felt it was best that the commissioners respond to the public comment or the concerns of the people that they bring to us in public comment at the end of our meeting during our commissioners' address period. Section 4, Class C, current version says audience members are prohibited from displaying signage during meetings. Our proposed change to this is audience members are prohibited from displaying signage which, and this is the part that's changed, which obstructs the view of audience members or otherwise disrupts the meeting. And that is all the public comment changes that we have, Mr. Chairman. And I would put that in form of a motion that we accept.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor to adopt the changes that we've got from our working group. Any discussion?
Yes. I looked back at previous meetings before the pandemic, and the meetings were 4 minutes. And also the public comment section was 4 minutes, and there was a public comment section every meeting. Here lately, there's only been one at each meeting, one at the first meeting of every month. I would like to add that we go back to the previous way of having a public comment section at every meeting.
Okay, well, is that in the form of an amendment to the motion?
Yes.
So move.
Okay, we've got an amendment. Is there any other discussion?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to clarify in regard to the 4 minutes. I remember when you and Commissioner Aycock got elected in 2012, and it was very important to you, that the citizens had an opportunity to express themselves. You also stated how you wanted community involvement, that it was very important that as a commissioner, we didn't know everything and we welcomed ideas. So, I think that 4 minutes is wonderful. In regard to us changing the policy with the signage, I think we all agreed, me and Chris and our attorney, that we couldn't just violate people's First Amendment rights, so that's why it was a change there.
Okay.
So what are we voting on? The amendment?
Yes.
To do what now?
Well, just a moment. Any other discussion first? Being done, we've got an amendment on the floor, and the amendment that is we're going to be voting on is actually to have public comment at both meetings of the Board of Commissioners. So rather than being on the first meeting of each month as it is currently, you would, the motion is, the amendment, and that is to move it to every meeting. Am I correct?
And which is, which section?
I'm not
I'm
sure
looking
which
through.
section that says that it would be on the first meeting of the month.
I don't know when that was ever changed as far as a policy or anything that it was, I don't know when that was changed as a policy to one meeting.
I'm not sure either.
I don't know, but I just know previously that it was two, for a long time, from 2012 to 2017.
There can
as far as I went back.
3B under the public comments policy.
So under 3B, it says, public comment shall be held once a month at the first regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners, and we would be changing public comment shall be held at each meeting of the Board of Commissioners. Or how would we terminate terminology on
I
that?
think you're talking about regular meetings.
At regular.
Yes, this is the regular meeting, I'm sorry.
Regular meetings. Okay.
Which will be the first and third Tuesday of each month, correct?
Currently, that's
Okay.
correct.
Oh, okay.
And with that in mind, we have an amendment to the motion on the floor. Any more discussion on the amendment? Not all those in favor of the amendment signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed to it, raise your right hand. Okay, so the amendment fails. We're now going to be voting on the motion, and the motion is to approve the recommended changes from the committee. Any discussion on? Being none, all those in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. Okay, and that was unanimous. I want to thank the working group because I know that took some time of yours to go through all of that.
We still got one more to go.
We got one more.
We got rules and procedures now.
Okay, but I still want to thank you because it did take a great deal of time and effort.
So did this one.
And we'll go on to the next one.
Okay, we were charged with, same group was looking at the changes to the rules and procedures of the Wayne County Board of Commissioners. Section 5, Subclass A, our proposed change under briefing session, the agenda briefing of the Board of Commissioners meeting days is the time to introduce the agenda to the full board. As such, this is not a time to discuss or act upon any items. Individuals associated with the items may provide further explanation during the briefing at the request of the chairman, but discussion should be held until the formal meeting, which will be at 9 o'clock. That's section. Section 5, subclass G, under current version, special presentations. Our proposed change is special presentations, if scheduled, presentations will be limited to 6 to 10 minutes. Presentations involving financial matters of the county shall not be subject to any time limit. The next one would be section 25. The current version states public hearings required by law or deemed advisable by the board shall be organized by special order adopted by a majority vote, setting forth the subject, date, place, and time of the hearing, as well as any rules regarding the length of time of each speaker, etc., unless otherwise stated in a special ordinance calling for the public hearing. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. At the appointed time, the chairman or the designee shall call the hearing to order and then proceed over it. When the allotted time expires or no one who has not yet spoken wishes to do so, the chairman or his designee shall declare the hearing ended. Our proposed change on that one, public hearing required by law or deemed advisable by the board shall be organized by a special order adopted by a majority vote, setting forth the subject, date, place, and time of the hearing, as well as any rules regarding the length of time of each speaker, etc. Unless otherwise stated in special ordinance calling for the public hearing, the speakers are limited to 4 minutes. This is the change, 4 minutes each. At the appointed time, the chairman or his designee shall call a hearing to order and then preside over it. When the allotted time expires or no one who has not spoken wishes to do so, the chairman or his designee shall declare the hearing ended. All right, the next section is section 29. I'm going to ask Andrew to come up and kind of explain this part because that's by this change. So.
This is the result of COVID. So this is the COVID meeting rule. So the board members who were on the board previously, when COVID first popped up, probably remember this in 2020. So as a background, there's no direct statutory authority for remote participation for commissioners. There also is no case law preventing it. So the School of Government and the leading authorities on the matter traditionally have suggested that a board adopt their own policy in the event a commissioner or board member wants to participate remotely. It's been common practice on our board, and that was done at our special meeting, that by majority vote, a commissioner is allowed to participate remotely. That's done at the beginning. That has been common practice. If you remember back in March 2020, that's when the governor, lockdown started, and we really couldn't have more than 10 people in a room at a time. It got really hard. So local governments across the state were trying to scramble to see how they can operate meetings safely and have remote participation. The suggestion by the AG's office and also the School of Government was that you adopt some sort of policy that mandates this. So that's what that March 26, 2020 meeting is, or that policy is. That provided a lot of different things, but specifically during the federal, state, or local state of emergency, remote participation was allowed, and it enacted some measures to make sure, roll call votes, things of that nature, to allow commissioners to participate remotely during COVID. About 2 months after that, the General Assembly recognized that this was a problem, so they enacted 166A-19.24, and that's in our first meeting in January that governed the meeting there. And what that requires is under a state of emergency in North Carolina, so not local, not federal, it's got to be by the governor or by the General Assembly enacting a state of emergency. Either one of those, you can participate remotely, and that's all governed by 166A-19.24. And if you recall, there's roll call votes. You have to announce if you're participating remotely that you're engaging in discussion. That was recently updated this past legislative session to provide some notice requirements that would allow us to change a regular meeting with certain notice requirements, but that was taken care of. So, in fact, our March 26, 2020 policy isn't needed. It's actually invalidated by the act of the General Assembly. So that's a long way to get to where we're at now, where Section 29 would be changed to remote meetings, and it says remote meetings shall be held pursuant to the provisions of North Carolina General Statute 166A-19.24, and then the second sentence remains the same in the absence of the conditions. So in the absence of a state of emergency, individual members shall only be permitted to participate in meetings remotely upon majority vote of the board. And that's a reversion back to the common practice with this board. I believe Commissioner Pate on the previous board and Commissioner Gurley participated remotely. Since I've been here, we've never had a commissioner who abuses this, and it's considered a courtesy to the other commissioners if a situation does arise and they can't make a meeting. So.
Okay.
Now you know what I'm asking. With all that being said, Mr. Chairman, we submit the changes to be adopted, and I'll put that in form of a motion.
So move.
Okay, I've got one question. If you'll scroll down to the preceding. Oop. The other way, there we go. Up. Here's the problem I have with this. On the proposed change, it says, at the appointed time, the chairman or his designee shall call the hearing to order and then preside over it. When the allotted time expires, scroll up just a tad, when the allotted time expires or no one who has not yet spoken wishes to do so, the chairman or his designee shall declare the hearing ended. There is no allotted time.
We overlooked that, and we saw that after we got through with our meeting.
So would you amend your recommendation to an allotted time, which is
And I guess
30
would be
minutes?
30 minutes would be basically is the same as the public hearing.
I would think so.
I would amend our, well, can I just rescind the motion and then just add that to it, or I need to amend the motion? Do I need to amend the part since we've met as a committee?
Commissioner Williams, if you wanted to, you could amend your motion and just add the 30-minute cap on that. So to approve the recommended changes, including a 30-minute cap on the public hearing.
I'll amend my motion and add with the, at the appointed time of 30 minutes. The chairman or his designee shall call the hearing to order and then preside over it when the allotted time expires or no one who has not yet spoken wishes to do so. The chairman or his designee shall declare the hearing ended.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, any more discussion on the motion to approve?
Yes. Special presentations, the 6 to 10 minutes. I previously asked that question about that, and it was stated that the chairman had the authority to do that, and that's what I was told by the chair, even though I'd never seen that rule. So if that's the case, why are we putting it here to vote on it if that was the case? I just want to make it clear that, you know, we've had the 6 to 10 minute rule in since for a couple of months now, and that was never a rule. I'm fine with it, you know, but I want it to make sure that we stick to that rule, that, you know, either we have a running clock or something, regardless. Like, you know, the city has a running clock to let folks know that their time is almost up, whether it be public comments or special presentations. If it's a finance issue such as the audit or something like that, I understand that's going to take a little bit longer. But we also can't confuse, say, oh, well, that's a finance issue because, you know, a couple of weeks ago, I think a guy came in and talked about the radios, and it was like 20 minutes. So we would need to make sure that that's shortened down, and that's 10 minutes as well. And that 6 to 10 minute rule was listed on the paper at the time. So if we're going to hold to that rule, we're going to hold to that rule with everyone. It's not going to be any picking and choosing. There will only be financial issues, and that's it.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Commissioner Foster, and we discussed this as well, Commissioner Williams and myself. This rule, the 4-minute rule on the public comment, the 4-minute rule on the public hearing needs to be adhered to, and it is up to the chairman to control that time period. And when their time is up, they get 4 minutes, not 4 minutes and 1 second. Because we've had, since I've been here, we've had several keep on and on and on talking. And you try to be nice, but I agree, if we're going to have rules, we need to follow them. So.
Point taken.
Not just, anyway.
I think, Mr. Chair, I think the reason that we changed that item is because we wanted to make certain that if there was a financial or a county issue that would probably take up more time, that it was written in the policy.
It doesn't say county issue, it's saying financial. So if that's what it is, we have to stick to that. You can't add in something different now. It's financial, you know what I'm saying? Of the county, financial matters of the county, you know what I'm saying? So it just can't be a county issue and you say, we're gonna jump to whatever minutes or whatever. So we gotta have clarity on that because, you know, like I said, I'm here to follow the rules. I've always asked about the rules. If it's not a rule, then I'm always against it. So with this, if we're gonna have the rule, it needs to be there. It needs to be simple, plain, and to the point.
Would there be a provision that the board could make to suspend the rule?
That's always the case.
It's always.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Park.
I don't think that you should limit a public hearing to 30 minutes. Public hearing, I have, unfortunately, the Court of Appeals ruled against the county who said that if you had a public hearing and you didn't let everybody speak who wanted to speak, that means that you, the board, has already made up your mind, and
So you're saying we cannot put a time limit?
I would recommend that you not put a time limit.
We're going to ask that you remove the amendment then, according to the attorney.
I remove my motion to amend.
Also, I would like to say, I mean, just legally, what our attorney just stated, we still need to be careful, because if the chairman is gonna determine special permission or whatever during the meeting, that could be biased towards certain individuals. So if we start getting biased with certain things, that can also be an issue that could be brought up. So that's a thin line also. You see what I'm saying? I mean, we got to be honest. This rule didn't even come up until this 6 to 10 minutes was never on paper until a few months ago. And during that meeting, I mean, with all honesty, that was our Register of Deeds came to speak. Before that, I'd never seen 6 to 10 minutes on an agenda.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
And I checked. I'm speaking. And I checked them all. So we're just going to be honest. So we're having legal issues now with that. And that's something, as an attorney, you're supposed to protect this board. So it's fine, whatever y'all want to do, but I'm just putting it out there. You can't say I didn't tell you.
State the motion that we're on.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor of the motion to approve as recommended, please indicate by.
Wasn't a motion yet.
Oh, I thought
I removed my motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adopt these said changes that I submitted just a few minutes ago.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor. All those in favor of the motion to approve signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed?
Because we rushed this, so we said, board and he said that shouldn't be a time limit.
We're not putting a time limit.
But
Time limit was not on there.
You didn't clarify it, though.
I said what I submitted.
That's correct.
I didn't say anything about the time limit, but the time limit.
Okay, we're moving on to the appointment committee.
Mr. Chairman, we do have several appointments to make today. I'll put these in the form of a motion. We need the Town of Eureka ET Planning Commission has submitted names for approval. Those names are Clara Sauls, Jesse Chase, Phil Jefferson, Dwight Jones, Ed Spence. And I'd like the appointment committee did vote and approve those names. I'd like to put this in the form of a motion.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor for approval. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chair, the Wayne Health Corporation Board of Directors has submitted the name of Chris Wise for the board. I'd like to put that in the form of a motion for
Okay, we've got a
approval.
motion on the floor. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand.
Okay, Mr. Chair, the Board of Health has,
That was not unanimous.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was, okay. My apologies.
okay. The Board of Health has recommended the reappointment of Mr. Tommy Gibson, Dr. Rich Sessions, and Dr. Stephen Leaves for reappointment.
Okay, that's the form of the motion. All those in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand.
Okay, and the Southern Wayne Sanitation District Board has recommended Ms. Jessica Pope for the Board of Directors in the form of a motion.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand.
Okay, and the Wayne County Adult Care Home Community Advisory Committee is asking for the reappointment of Ethel Sampson in the form of a motion.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Okay.
Okay, and that's it.
Well, that's enough. Okay. The consent agenda. I welcome a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
All right, we got a motion on the floor for the consent agenda. Any discussion?
Just number 2, does Fremont have any, I know you said they put it out for bid in the paper, correct?
Yes, sir.
Do they have any joint land offers that they have do with the adjoining property owners or anything?
I'm not aware of any rules that they have.
Because I know everybody's rules is different from
Yes.
Goldsboro. I just want to make sure that they've done everything. I'm not saying that they haven't, but I just wanted to ask.
They don't have any specific legislation like Goldsboro does. That I recall, this is maybe the first one that we've ever gotten from Fremont.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, since I've been here, I know for sure.
It's the first one I know of since I've been on the board.
This is a previous tax foreclosure. I did look at the property tax card. The house is in pretty rough shape, probably needs to be torn down. So I suspect that's why Fremont wanted to go ahead and do it, sell it to somebody who can tear it down and get it cleaned up.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor for approval of consent agenda.
May I confirm that motion was by Commissioner Williams?
Commissioner Williams.
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. Okay, that's unanimous. Public comments.
There is no
That
one
has-
signed up?
There's no one signed up. Well, we were going to expand it to 4 minutes. County managers report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to read a press release we had that is now invalid, but I do want to say that we're getting the N95 mask in, and so let me read what Joel gave me originally. This morning, the Wayne County Health Department will be distributing N95 masks at 4 locations across the county. Each household will receive 1 box of 20 masks, first come, first served, while supplies last. N95 masks will be available at the following locations on weekdays: Pikeville Library, Goldsboro Library, Still Memorial Library, and the Health Department testing site on Grantham Street at the old food line. Masks are also being distributed to riders on GWTA. These masks are being provided free of charge by the federal government to local pharmacies and health centers across the United States. This morning, we had masks. At, what time is it now? We ran out of masks. So
Let me ask you a question. Is there a limit on how many a person can get? I thought it was 2.
I think they're saying 1 box of 20 masks.
Per person?
Per person.
Per family.
Or per family, yeah.
That's the reason they run out.
Each household. Each household.
So it was boxed up at 20 masks.
Right.
See, that's a bad way to distribute it. I mean, but
Right.
I can understand it was given by the
Per
boxes
household.
that they had.
Yeah. So, but again, what I wanted you to be aware of is you've seen all the mask giveaways that were occurring across other counties. Wanted you to know that we were doing them as well, but also we were out.
Okay. So you get a press release out to that effect.
We will order as much and as quickly as possible, but wanted you to know, and I appreciate the health department and our library system working to try. I heard as well from Joel that they were lined up at the library this morning to get the mask, and they had to even open early because it was kind of cold. So we'll get them out as quickly and as soon as possible, but I did want the board to know that we're in the process of having a plan in place. We're limited upon the number of masks we get. So,
And they,
yeah.
I know the thing I'm saying.
All right.
All right. I do have a couple
I'm
other.
thinking the same thing.
I do have a couple other things. Number one, I do want to thank the board for the retreat that we held on Friday. I thought it went very, very well. I appreciate the information. I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate the feedback from our invited guests. Congressman Butterfield did an incredible job, and we appreciate him taking the time to specifically be there in person, and we were just thrilled that he could make that time to be there. But also we had representatives from Senator Burr and Senator Tillis's office, and Representative Smith was there as well. So again, want to thank our special guests for being there. But again, once you get your priorities, please get those back to Carol, and then we'll start looking at ranking, and then that'll give us that direction for budget, but also for priorities moving forward next year. The second thing I did want to mention, one of the things that really came out of the retreat was the discussion of a quarterly meeting with our municipalities. and that seemed to have, unanimous support. So right now, we do have the first one scheduled. It will be on March 1, which is a month from today, at the Maxwell Center. We will do that after this meeting and have lunch at the Maxwell Center. We will invite all the municipalities and school board to be in attendance. We're working on a agenda right now and looking at that infrastructure grant, looking at the asset inventory grant, and that we're doing countywide, and hopefully we're going to get somebody from the state to come in, talk about the process and talk about outcomes. So we're working on that now. We really want these meetings to be positive, and we really want it to be information given. We just don't want it to be a lunch. So we want it to be value added to your time, but value added also to our municipalities' time as well. So, but please put that on your calendar for March 1. We'll be making sure to get those invitations out. Carol's going to do that after our meeting today to make sure we get people and get it on their calendars early.
Mr. Nicut?
Yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt. But can you please make sure that they understand what their priorities are and be able to discuss those with us?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Wanted to also mention, we have been working, we've been without a travel and tourism director, and working with the city and also with the Travel and Tourism Board. We do have a position hired. The city should be making that announcement in the next couple of days. So that position is being filled, which is very important to our community. And the last thing I did want to mention is that I will be out Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at the City County Managers Meeting in Winston-Salem. So if you need me, just get me by phone or by email. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, sir. Again, I want to thank everybody that attended the retreat. It was a wonderful retreat, a lot of great information. I got a lot of thinking outside the box. Also want to thank the Latino Council. I actually had a committee meeting with them, and they expressed some concerns they had pertaining to some of our young youth in school that are having vaccination issues, immunization issues as well. So hopefully we can work on that. The library, we had a great committee meeting there as well. And I just want to let everybody know there's going to be a documentary on Tuesday for Black History Month. And it's going to be discussions with Lisa Henderson. And she's going to be presenting the life and times of Napoleon Higgins, a free man of color who rose to prominence in the Eureka and Fremont communities. And also my condolences to the Thompson and Reed family for their loss. My prayers are with you. Thank you.
Commissioner Foster.
No comment.
Mr. Hardison.
Some good news on COVID at the hospital, at least. The COVID rate is coming down. We had expected it to peak in February this month, actually. We're now considering elective surgeries again. We have postponed those. And again, folks, if you aren't vaccinated, please get vaccinated, because what we're seeing is those unvaccinated people are the ones that are getting sick. If you're vaccinated, yeah, you may get sick, but you won't be as ill as the unvaccinated folks. So again, please get your vaccination if you haven't had it.
Commissioner Barbara Acock.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to thank the staff for putting together the meeting last Friday for our retreat at the Maxwell Center. Very informative. I think it was great presentations, and I learned a lot myself at that meeting. I also want to thank the board for the consideration of starting to bring the towns together to meet with their concerns. As a former town manager, I understand how information don't get filtered down that's going on that maybe could be helpful. And hopefully the the towns will take this as a positive thing and come forth and learn what we know. And we can also gather information from them on their needs also, because there is some needs out there. And I want to thank everyone for being there for me with the loss of my husband. It's very helpful. And thank y'all very much. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Gurley.
So, Mr. Chairman, we discussed a lot of stuff Friday, and a lot of infrastructure issues that we have, which is going to dictate the future of our county. The highway issues are, the funds are not there as much as what we anticipated, and there's going to be some picking and choosing on some highway projects that we have coming up. We are hopeful on our sewer issues that we can implement a plan that will address the issues for us and hope and maybe surrounding areas which impact our economic development as a region. These are going to be big money items that and we have to think long term. It's not got this way overnight. It's not going to get fixed overnight, but we got to have a long-term plan, which is going to be some sacrifices on all of us as board members and community. But that's I think that's the biggest issue that I see that I'm going to push for is our infrastructure needs and the implementation of a plan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good. Vice Chairman Aycock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had the pleasure of attending the ribbon cutting out at Deacon Jones Hyundai dealership a couple of weeks ago, and I knew they had a lot of employees in Wayne County, but they got over 250 employees in Wayne County, over 500 or around 500, a little over 500 in their organization altogether. So that's a big organization. Also, I probably haven't done a very good job of keeping y'all informed on what's going on at the college, but our new president, Dr. Pfeiffer, is doing a fantastic job. I haven't heard no complaints. She's getting along well with the faculty and the staff, and she's a hands-on president. Also, our building programs at the college are moving forward with the advanced manufacturing, the remodeling, and the process of probably a new building on campus. Also, I had the honor to attend Chief Willard Herring's funeral. Chief Herring was the longest rank, had served the longest of any fire chief in the history of Goldsboro. Did an outstanding job, brought the city of Goldsboro's fire department a long way. And I want to commend the Goldsboro Fire Department on their participation in his funeral, and also the Goldsboro Police Department and the Sheriff's Department for an excellent job on controlling traffic to Wayne Memorial Park. And also, as the other board members has mentioned, I think we had a great retreat. We, I've attended 9 of them now, and I feel like that we probably accomplished as much of this one as we have at a lot of them in the past. I mean, a lot of discussion, and got some good information, and I feel like that the goals that we are trying to reach, it's going to take some sacrifices, but we're going to get there.
You through?
That's it. I'm through.
That's it. I believe if you could let us know, I think we've got a work session scheduled for our next meeting. Is that correct?
We do. We do have somebody from the School of Government that will be at our 13th meeting that will
We were trying to actually get that scheduled for our retreat and was unable to do so. So after our commissioners meeting on the.
On the 15th, I'm sorry, the 15th. I'm sorry, 2 weeks from today.
Right. We'll have a work session that we'll have after that.
Right. With John Stevens with the School of Government and talking about board goals and relationships and moving forward.
Okay, and I've got no further comments. I do, other than to thank staff and board members for, in my estimation, a real good retreat. I think it was some topics that needed to be discussed, and hopefully we all learned something from it, and that we can establish some goals moving forward. And we're hoping to have a very successful 22. Anything further before the board? Being none, we adjourn.